not exactly the practical currently. So we will be discussing on NAT and PAT, all right? Uh, so what do you understand by NAT, Roderick, or anyone can tell? Wilbert,
Not
Convert
not the
the public IP address to private so that it
okay?
can communicate.
NAT and PAT, Fortigate. So what do you mean by NAT?
Network
the
Network?
address
Okay.
translation.
translation.
Network address translation. What about PAT?
This one is port.
Yeah, it's port address translation. So you have a basic idea about the NAT, right? Or do you want me to explain what exactly NAT do in networks?
For me, I have a basic idea for now.
Okay. So it's network address translation, right?
Yes.
So what it does is exactly it translates the local IP to public IP,
Public IP.
right? Correct, right? Or you have something else to say about this?
That's what I understand also.
Okay. So it translates local IP to public IP. The reason of why we are using NAT is because of lack of IPv4 addresses. Okay. So
Yes.
by doing NAT, then we will save more IP addresses here. Okay. Similarly, the ports, PAT, the port address translation, it translates the um, local IP port to the public IP port, right?
Yes.
So NAT works on layer 3 of the OSI model and PAT works on layer 3 and layer 4 both. Okay. So it works vice versa, right? Like um, from private IP address to public IP addresses, and if you want to translate to public IP address to private IP addresses, it works vice versa. So basically, there are there are two types of NAT configuration we do, right? One is the source NAT, another
Destination.
one is the destination NAT, right? This is in general, okay? I'm saying in general, there are two types, source NAT and the destination NAT, okay? So, so in FortiGate, the NAT is again divided into two parts. So it dep- so normally in Cisco routers, what we do, we configure the source NAT and the destination NAT. Including source path and the destination path we will configure in Cisco routers. So in FortiGate, what we are doing here is in FortiGate also in FortiGate we can configure two types of NAT. Okay, so one is the policy NAT. Okay, and another one is the central NAT. Okay, so there are two types we can configure here, policy NAT and the central NAT. So let me log in and show you these things, okay, once. So 11.27. So suppose if I have an public IP, okay, so this is my public IP. Public IP is 192.168.211.100. Okay, and I have the inside network IP. That is 10.10.10.10. Okay. Now, if I want to have the internet working on this IP, I have to do the source NAT here. Okay. So when we configure the source NAT using policy NAT or the central NAT, it will translate this IP address to this IP so that this IP address computer should get connected to the internet, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what is destination NAT now? What is destination NAT?
Inside IP.
So let me show you. Okay, so I'll just take one laptop here. Laptop switch. Then I'll just take the cloud for my outside internet. So this is connected to the switch, and switch is connected to the firewall. Firewall is connected to the internet. Now, here the IP address of my laptop is 10.10.10.10. Okay. And I have this port configured. This port. That is maybe it is port 1 in our Fortigate, right? So this is configured for 192.168.211.100. Okay. So now the source NAT, if this PC want to connect to internet, we will do the source NAT configuration. So this IP will send request to this port, okay, and then it would be, we have configured port 1 and port 2 to translate this IP address, to this IP address to this IP address. So it translates the IP address and it will get connected to the internet. This is source NAT. And what about the destination NAT? So let's take one server here. So I'll just add one server here. And connect to the, so this is basically an FTP server, okay? FTP server. And there is an outside user here. So I'll just add another laptop. Okay, this is an outside user connected to the internet. Okay, and this is in our inside zone, and this is in our DMZ zone, demilitarized zone. Okay, so this outside person wants to connect to the company network, okay, and want to access this FTP server. Okay, so now this server IP address is again 20.20.20.20. So this network. So maybe it can be a port 3 in Fortigate. Okay. So now what we are doing here is he is connected to the outside network already, this IP address to the public IP address. Now we want to convert this public IP, translate this public IP to the internal network IP. So this is the destination network address translation, so that he will get access to the FTP server. So we always keep resources for the outside users in the demilitarized zone, because we don't want them to get to the inside network. Okay, so we create a separate zone for them, and whatever the resources they need, we will add them into demilitarized zone in the network. Okay. Any doubts in source NAT and the destination NAT?
Okay.
It's okay, sir.
All right. All right. So further,
Okay.
yeah. So further here in Fortigate, what happens is, just create one here. So in PolicyNAT, we will configure it for the inside the network, okay? But for the central NAT, it is configured and applied globally, okay?
Why did you understand, sir?
Sorry.
Well, I didn't understand the difference between policing that and the
Okay.
kind of go.
See, what happens is
And central
PolicyNAT,
not.
yeah. So I'll just explain it. PolicyNAT is something we will create as a source NAT and the destination NAT first. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And further it is in Fortigate, it can be configured. Sorry, so NAT, if you say NAT, network address translation is configured into source NAT and destination NAT, right? NAT is configured into source NAT and destination NAT, right? And further the policy, further
Yes.
the further the source NAT and the destination NAT in Fortigate can be configured as policy NAT as well as the central NAT. Okay, I'll just show you one. So, for example, like this. I just draw the diagram here so that you can understand better. So this is our NAT. Okay. Then I'll just add one more here. I just mentioned it. This is source NAT. Okay. And destination NAT. This NAT is configured as source NAT and destination NAT. Okay. Now further, source NAT is configured in Fortigate as policy NAT also. Central NAT also. So destination NAT also configured as policy NAT as well as the destination NAT. Clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
Now let us understand the policy NAT here. Okay. What you need to understand about the policy NAT is it's a default NAT which is configured in the Fortigate. Okay. So we haven't configured any type of NAT yet, right? We
Okay.
did almost 4 to 5 practicals, but we haven't configured any type of NAT because the default policy NAT is already configured there. Okay, that is static source NAT. It's already configured there. Okay. So this is in policy NAT again, we have two types of NATs here. One is static source NAT. Okay. Another one is dynamic static NAT. Okay. So further in dynamic static NAT, we have different things. Different types of configurations, you can say. Okay, so one we have here is that is overload internet. Okay, so this is the one we have. Then we have one-to-one, one-to-one NAT. Okay, then we have fixed port range. Fixed port range. Then we have port block allocation. all these are the types of configuration for the NAT. So if you have 1,000, 5,000 IPv4 addresses, all right, and you want to have them to translate using the one public IP address, okay, at that time, what we will do is we would use this overload method there, okay. So in our case, like suppose in 10 um, in A class IP address, you can have up to how many IP addresses? More than 16 to 20,000 IP addresses, right? So if you want to translate those IP addresses into using one public IP address and provide internet to all those systems, then we would use this method, overload internet. Okay. One-to-one network address translation
Okay.
means, so suppose this computer has 10.10.10 IP address, and only this computer you want to translate to this IP address. Okay. So then in Fortigate Firewall, it's possible. But if you have another computer with 10.10.10.20 and you want to translate that computer also using one-to-one method with this IP address, it's not possible. You have to take another public IP there. Okay. So this method is available here. Fixed port range and the port block allocation. So fixed port range means you will have set of ports fixed range, like I mean logical as well as the physical ports. Okay, logical and the dynamic ports which we use. So you can use those ports to configure the NAT. Okay, port block allocation and anything you want to block during the NAT process or PAT process for particular ports, you can use this method. So all these options are available under the dynamic static NAT, under the policy NAT. Okay. Clear, or do you have any doubts? So you will
Sir,
have
I
to,
have a question, no?
yeah.
Import block allocation, we can block a certain network or a certain IP address,
See, this is
right?
port block allocation. Okay. So port block
Yeah.
allocation means you can only block ports, not
Yes.
IP addresses, not IP address. But I mean, when you see in FortiGate, if you're doing a NAT, policy NAT, if you're doing a policy NAT or the central NAT, okay, if you're doing this, and if you're doing SNAT or the DNAT, what happens is it translates both IP and port by default.
Yeah.
Okay, so it translates IP and port by default. So if you are using port block allocation, it might actually use the IP address. Along with the IP address, you have to mention the port details there.
So, sir, in Fortigate, when you use the NAT, at the same time, he do NAT and PAT
Both.
at the same
It,
time.
it, it,
Both.
it's actually happening here. Okay, so it's
Yes,
by
sir.
default,
By default.
yeah, it's there. Okay, so you don't have to configure that. It's by default, it's there. We can see
He
in the
will do
practical,
NAT
okay,
and PAT at the same time, sir.
same time, yes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So in central NAT, so like if you see in central NAT, we don't have much. Okay, so because it's what you need to understand here is this is configured globally for source NAT and the destination NAT. Okay. Central NAT can be configured using central NAT can be configured for source NAT and destination NAT. But if you're using central NAT, then the policy NAT will not be applicable, all right? Everything will be removed if you use enabling the central NAT. At a time, you can use only one type of network address translation method, either the policy NAT or the central NAT. Clear, or do you have any doubts?
Clear, sir.
Okay, so that's Let me log in here. So here today what we will be doing in practical is one is the static net. Okay, static net using outgoing interface address. Okay, and the dynamic static net overload. Dynamic SNAT. Okay, so I'll just create the topology. Simultaneously, if you want to create the topology, you can also create the topology, all right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just adding the firewall first, and then now we require 2 switches and 1 router, okay? So I'll add 2 switches here. Let's go IOL. Then we'll add 2 switches here. layer 3. Change the icon. So one we will use in the outside network here, okay? And one we will use for the inside network, okay? And we will add one router for pinging and checking for the net translation, okay? So that is Cisco 3725, we will add it here. Okay. Then we will add the VPCs, at least 2 VPCs is required. So this is for my inside network. Okay. So let's make connections. We'll connect this to the switch. Then switch is connected to our firewall. Firewall again, it's connected. Let me add the network connection. One is for, so we will add the connection for the outside network. Okay, so this will be our ISP management as well as the management. Okay, so we will connect.
We have a pizza.
Yeah. So we will connect this to port 1, okay, our management port. Okay. And this will be port 2. And we'll connect. We'll connect the second PC here. And after that, we will connect the router. All right, so I'll just wipe all the devices first and then we'll turn off. So let the devices switch on. We will do the IP configurations, okay? So for inside network, we will be using the A-class IP address, that is 10.10.10.10. So this is for this PC. I'll just duplicate this. So this will be 10.10.20. And we'll just duplicate this again. So 10.10.1 we will be using for our port 2. Okay. So port 1 will be DHCP enabled, so it will take the IP address from 211, right? So we will add here 192.168.211.0 network.